Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the thriller crime films from 2008, titled Pathology. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie opens with a clip of some medical students playing with dead corpses in the morgue. They are using them as puppets to reenact some famous movie dialogues. The scene then shifts to our protagonist, Dr. Ted, who is having a romantic time with his fiancée, Gwen. She is annoyed by the fact that he has to leave for 3 months, but he consoles her that time will pass away soon. Following this, Ted arrives at the Metropolitan University Medical Center, where he will be joining one of the best pathology residency programs in the country. He is greeted by a fellow resident, Ben, who takes him to the morgue room, where unexplained and mysterious deaths from across the city are examined. We can see several doctors dissecting the dead bodies to conduct an autopsy. Later, the two join a class conducted by the head pathologist, Dr. Morris. He explains that in this field of science, they have to explore all the possibilities to determine the cause of death. After the class ends, Ted approaches Dr. Morris, who praises Ted for his achievements in this field. Just then, another medical resident of the institute, Dr. Jake Gallo, arrives there, so Morris informs Ted that Jake single-handedly helped the FBI solve a family murder case. Meanwhile, Ted was top of the class at Harvard, before being accepted in the UNICEF program in Lagos. Despite these accomplishments, Jake doesn't seem to be impressed at all. He instead stares at our hero with a jealous look. Later, all the students gather for an autopsy. Jake, being as cocky as always, conducts only a surface check, and concludes that the 11-year-old boy died due to kidney failure. However, Ted is not satisfied with the answer. He steps forward and confidently says that the boy died due to an asthma attack. Ted delved deeper into the psychological aspect of the case, and learned that the boy was actually a victim of bullying. He was ridiculed for his obese body, which was caused by the regular intake of asthma drugs. When the boy couldn't take it anymore, he stopped taking the drugs, resulting in his demise. The other students, including Juliet and Griffin, are envious of the answer and they stare at Ted angrily. Later, Griffin deliberately bumps into Ted outside the building. Griffin asserts that the team doesn't like Ted, but Ted simply says it's not his problem. The following day, the students gather for yet another autopsy demonstration, and Ted notices Juliet seductively staring at him, but he ignores her because he already has a fiancée. All of a sudden, the dead man begins shaking, so Ted reacts by stabbing his nape. The arrogant students believe he's killed the man, but Dr. Morris reveals that the move was a clever one, as it severed the dead man's nerve from his brain. Once again, Jake and his friends are less than impressed by our hero's intelligence. The only one who supports him is the nerd Ben. In the next scene, we see the students engrossed in their regular work. Jake goes on a rant about how more people should die rather than doing useless things in life. Most of his friends agree to this, but Ted doesn't. The two rivals come face to face later, where Jake invites Ted to join them for a drinking session down at the bar. Later, the two men join the rest of the group at a bar. Juliet and Jake turn out to be in a relationship. One of the doctors, Catherine, asks who they would kill if given the chance. Ted responds that humans don't need a motive to kill, it just comes to them naturally. Juliet seems intrigued by his response, and she seems attracted to this guy. Later, Jake asks Ted to meet the following night for a fun time. The next night, we see the two men enjoying the time of their lives. They are driving recklessly under the influence of alcohol. Shortly after, Jake escorts Ted to a brothel, where Jake convinces the guard to allow them to enter by bribing him some money. Ted then enters the dimly lit house, but he soon becomes overwhelmed upon seeing an old woman being used as an escort. This makes him throw up and he ends up passing out. The following day, we see Ted back in the pathology lab, where all the students are gearing up to conduct a new autopsy. But when the corpse is revealed, Ted is shocked to the core. The man turns out to be the same security guard they encountered last night. He excuses himself to the locker room as he realizes something is wrong. The others continue without him, and Griffin gives the obvious answer, that the man was stabbed several times and shot in the back of head. This is because there are stab wounds on his body. But shortly after, Ted returns to the room and gives a different form of diagnosis. He claims that the man died of potassium cyanide poisoning, and the killer just stabbed him to fool everyone. Since the chemical is not traceable in standard tests, at first sight, it seems that he has been butchered instead of poisoned. Surprisingly, Jake agrees with him, and suspects that the killer might have injected the chemical right into the man's heart. After the session concludes, Jake asks Ted to meet him at the morgue at night. In the next scene, the two men meet at the morgue. Jake takes Ted to an underground section of the facility, which has been abandoned for decades. Inside a room, the dead body of the earlier guard has been placed on a surgery bed. Ted accuses Jake of killing the man, and surprisingly, the latter accepts it. He justifies his actions by saying that the guard was a criminal, who had it coming, and Jake also claims that this is just a game. In fact, the old woman inside the brothel was actually the guard's own grandmother. Jake then challenges Ted to find the cause of his death, but the latter is not interested in playing such games. He instead calls Jake a serial killer before storming away from there. That night, Ted calls Jake and inquires why he trusted him with this secret, so Jake reminds Ted that he was also present at the brothel when the crime took place. His fingerprints and other samples are all over the place. Jake also claims that Ted won't disclose the secret to anyone, because he will never get to play the game. The next day, Dr. Morris informs Ted that the results of the dead man's tests are out, and it concluded that he did not die of potassium cyanide poisoning. Hearing this, Ted decides to delve deeper into the matter. That evening, he approaches Jake, and gives his final verdict that the guard died due to nitric acid poisoning, not potassium cyanide. He was not injected by a syringe, but rather the chemical was mixed with flavored beer. Hearing this, Jake is impressed as Ted is able to uncover the actual cause of the death. He then asks him to bring something to the table if he wants to be a part of the game. The next morning, Juliet approaches Ted outside the building and asks if he's ready to join the game. He is not sure about it, but she hands him his first assignment anyway. Ted is directed to a certain room in the hospital, where he learns that the target is a criminal who murdered his wife and both kids. The man also tried to kill himself with his gun, but failed. That evening, while returning home in a bus, he sees an elderly lady having a heart attack. But instead of helping her, Ted simply gets off the bus and leaves, indicating that his priorities are slowly changing. The next day, he gets dressed as a nurse, and goes to the target's room. Then, without any remorse,
are you sure it's not too late to change your mind?
He injects a substance into his ear, killing him on the spot. Even though he feels guilty about it, Jake asserts that it's his first day, so it's normal to feel this way, but that he won't be feeling this way forever. Afterward, Ted joins the rest of the team in the underground morgue, where the deceased man's body is also present. Now, it's their turn to identify the cause of the death. To celebrate his joining, Ted is given a substance to smoke, which he does. He soon becomes high and watches on as the others playfully dissect and mutilate the body. Now, it's Juliet's turn to find the next victim, and she asks Ted to help her kill a person. She takes him outside an obese man's house, revealing that he's her father. She then discloses that he frequently molested her when she was a kid, so she wants to punish him now. After Ted is on board with the plan, they venture inside the man's house. The following night, the group gathers at their base as usual, and they checked inside the body to figure out how the death occurred. Upon seeing the body's condition, Jake becomes suspicious as Juliet isn't capable of such clean killings. In the flashback, we see that Ted and Juliet offer the victim a recreational substance to smoke, which he does happily. Ted then hands him a canister of liquid nitrogen, and the man casually smokes it, thinking it's another recreational drug. But soon, it freezes his organs, rendering him motionless. Juliet takes this opportunity to bash his chest repeatedly with a can of beer, shattering all his organs. After committing the horrific act, Ted and Juliet have a romantic intercourse session. Back to the present, Jake later approaches Ted privately, and reminds him to play fair. Surprisingly, he also reveals that Juliet's father is still alive and well. The revelation leaves Ted shocked, as he realizes that they killed an innocent man the other night. Despite this, his relationship with Juliet grows stronger, and they have regular intercourse in the morgue. The game also continues as usual, and the group members kill several people to test each other with so many kinds of creative murders, seeking ways to commit the perfect murder. One evening, when Ted reaches home after work, he finds Juliet already there. He reveals that he will be visiting his fiancée for the holidays to spend time with her, but this doesn't deter Juliet in the slightest, and the two end up having coitus once again. Ted's good life is slowly crumbling as a result of his actions, and the next day, he finally meets with Gwen after a long time. Later on, Gwen reveals that she is finally going to move in with him in the city, as she can take her bar exams from there. Ted definitely doesn't want her to learn about his activities, but he keeps a straight face and pretends to be happy. A few days later, they return to the city together, and the first thing Gwen notices in his room is a bong. She angrily asks about it, thinking he has become an addict, but Ted lies to her that he's holding it for a friend, who wants to quit smoking. That evening, the two get dressed and head to a party organized by the university. They first run into Ben and his girlfriend, but then, a completely annoying Jake approaches them with Juliet by his side. He casually starts talking about death and other weird topics, and this obviously weirds Gwen, and she might think he's the one who hit the bong. As Ted and Gwen walk away, Juliet has her gaze fixed on Ted, and Jake notices this. In a fit of rage, he makes a scene at the party, telling Juliet that she belongs to him, but she coldly walks away. That night, Jake asks Ted to come to the morgue urgently. Ted then makes up an excuse, and promises to Gwen that he will be back soon. At the morgue, he is horrified to see a drunk and bloodied Jake dancing among several dead bodies. Turns out he killed 3 women for no apparent reason.
You're losing it, Dr. Gallo!
A completely out of mind Jake holds Ted at knife point. To avoid meeting the same fate as the women, Ted plays the game and starts revealing how they were killed. He guesses all the answers correctly with his quick thinking, and Jake is very impressed by his knowledge. Later, when Ted reaches home, he is surprised to find Juliet waiting for him downstairs. She desperately wants to do it with him, and Ted quickly stops her and walks away, while Jake notices them from a distance. The following day, Ted meets with Jake, and says that he wants to quit the game for good. Jake asserts that it won't be possible, and then starts talking about Gwen, saying she should attend one of their meetings soon. Hearing this, Ted gets scared, so he quickly apologizes and agrees to stay. Jake then informs him about tomorrow night's meeting, which is apparently very important. Later, Ted heads to the underground base alone, and inspects the place thoroughly. The following night, it's time for the important meeting, and Jake's turn to bring the victim. All 4 group members show up, except for Juliet and Ted. They believe that the two are together and decide to get rid of them. Following this, Jake uncovers the corpse they are about to play with today, who turns out to be none other than Juliet. The group is clearly shocked to see her dead. A guy named Chip is then instructed to initiate the autopsy, but he decides to get high first, as he needs a lot of courage to open his friend apart. But unbeknownst to them, there's a gas leak in the entire room. Chip fires his lighter, causing an explosion in the room. As they scream and burn in the flames, we learn that Ted is the one who orchestrated the entire event. The following morning, Ted arrives at work, acting clueless. Dr. Morris reveals the explosion, and mentions that the bodies of 4 students were discovered, including Juliet and Griffin. 2 bodies have yet to be identified, so that leaves 1 more unaccounted for. Hearing this, Ted is scared if the missing one might be Jake, so he tries contacting his girlfriend, but she doesn't notice the call. With no other options, Ted rushes to his apartment on foot. At the same time, we see Jake, who's still alive, arriving at the apartment. Poor Gwen opens the door when she hears the bell, and sees Jake. When Ted finally arrives home, she discovers his girlfriend lying on the bed. Unfortunately, it's too late now. After confirming that she's dead, he hugs her and starts crying uncontrollably. The next morning, he is approached by Dr. Morris, who reveals that the missing Jake is the prime suspect of the murders, and the cops are on the hunt for him. Morris claims that he hasn't been able to find the cause of Gwen's death. In response, a grief-stricken Ted says he will do the autopsy himself, and Morris agrees. With this, Ted gets straight to work, and he starts dissecting his girlfriend in the pathology room. After examining her body thoroughly, he notes down his diagnosis to inform the police and her family. The next evening, we see Ted still engrossed in his research. But then, when everyone departs and he is left alone. Shortly after, Ted awakens to find that his hands are tied. Jake has Gwen's autopsy results, and he is furious that everything is inaccurate, and appears to be a simple murder. He claims that his sublime work of killing her has been turned into a joke. Regardless, he is also happy because he has finally won over his rival, because Ted failed to figure out the cause of Gwen's death. Hearing this, Ted inexplicably starts laughing, and says that he wrote a false autopsy so that Gwen's parents wouldn't freak out. In reality, he knows the actual cause of her death. With the help of Ben, Ted starts explaining his theory. At first, Jake covered her mouth with a cloth soaked in chloroform, incapacitating her. But he made sure she was still conscious. Here, they do the same thing to Jake. He believes that Jake injected her with potassium, before dripping nitroglycerin on her tongue. Ted explains that his girlfriend slowly drifted towards her death, and the process took exactly 7 minutes. She was conscious the entire time. After this, Ted starts opening up Jake's body, and the latter feels every bit of the pain in his immobile state. The movie ends as Ted delivers the final blow by severing a major organ in Jake's body. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.